served the last about 2.5 years in the legislature, and I've learned a lot in that time, and I've learned that there's a lot more work left to do. I think that we've just begun work on our fiscal plan. We have some challenges as it relates to public safety in the state of Alaska. We have an opioid and addiction epidemic in the state of Alaska that needs resolved. That's a particular interest of mine. And some work on healthcare prices and costs that really needs to be addressed. So I think that there's work left to be done, and I still have something left to offer the people of District 16. Well, I think that I support using a percent of market value sort of solution for using permanent fund for funding state government within some limits. I think that we need to make sure that we have the largest dividend that we possibly can, because using a permanent fund only solution is one of the most regressive options we could utilize. It impacts working class people and people with families at a higher percentage than it does others. So it needs to be done in concert with some other things. I did actually vote for SB 26 this last year because one of my biggest concerns is that we've spent down all of our savings. We have really almost nothing left in savings. We've drained the state budget reserve and the constitutional budget reserve, and the next possible pot that the legislature and the state was going to be looking to was the earnings reserve of the permanent fund. That can be spent with a simple majority vote of each the House and the Senate. That's only 21 votes and 11 votes in the Senate. And that concerns me. We were able to spend through about $14 billion of savings when we needed a 3/4 vote to get there. And so I felt it was really important that we put a cap on how much money could be taken out of the permanent fund. And SB 26 did that. That said, I think that we need to come up with a more comprehensive and sustainable balanced fiscal plan. Well, I think that, as I said earlier, balance and fairness those are core values to me. And so right now we have a solution that's sort of unfairly overtaxing, I think, working class and people with children at this point in time. So I'd like to see us revisit oil taxes. I know there are people that feel like, we continue to have the oil tax conversation. I would argue actually the only reason we still are having the oil tax conversation is because the oil companies were able to effectively buy a significant reduction of oil taxes when they passed SB 21 with a very narrow vote of the public in a primary election. If we were under our old oil tax structure, the ACES structure, we just about wouldn't have a fiscal gap right now, and we wouldn't have burned through all of that savings. So I think it's important that we be looking at a fiscal plan that makes the most sense. I also think that as it relates to oil taxes, it doesn't make any sense to give away what is a finite natural resource. It's not going to reoccur. It's never going to happen again. There's only so much oil in the ground for a discount price when we know that there's only a limited amount of it. We should be getting the maximum value that we can so that we can make sure we have adequate public safety, public education, and transportation systems in Alaska. Well, I think when it relates to public safety, one of the biggest concerns that I have at this point in time is properly funding it. We have a recruitment and retention problem as it relates to in public safety. Our troopers and other law enforcement officers, they don't have Social Security, they don't have SBS, which was created to replace Social Security, and all they have is a defined contribution plan essentially at this point in time. It's not enough to live on. Those are tough careers. You can only do that for so long because of the stress that it puts on your body and your mind, and we need to make sure that we're compensating those people appropriately so that we're not losing our law enforcement officers to the lower 48 states. Sure. So in substance abuse, we need to make sure that there's no wrong door for people who are looking to get treatment. I participated in this national fellows group learning about opioid addiction and possible responses to it this year. And some of the best solutions that we know of that are being done in the lower 48 states ensure that there's no wrong door, so that if somebody knows that they're struggling with addiction, they can go to their primary care provider, and their primary care provider can help them with addiction treatment. I'd like us to explore, making it easier for our existing healthcare providers to provide more addiction treatment. Medically assisted treatment is really the gold standard for addiction treatment, and that can be provided by a primary care provider. Right now, there are some educational gaps there, and there's also some regulatory burdens that make it difficult for them to do. I'd like to address that. The other thing that we need to do is make sure that we have adequate facilities so that when people are ready to go into addiction treatment, there's a spot for them. We've restructured the way we finance addiction treatment in the state of Alaska, so we're using Medicaid so it can expand and contract to meet the need. That's good, but if there's not a bed for them to go to, then there's still not opportunity for people to find the recovery that they need. So I think in its initial format, I had some concerns about it, but it's been restructured. The Supreme Court eliminated a couple of key provisions of it. I think that I'm personally going to be supporting it. If we need to make some tweaks, we can do that after the 2-year time frame has ended.